The views expressed on this show by guests and the host on issues outside of the 9/11 controlled demolition evidence are the opinions of those individuals alone and do not necessarily reflect those of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Welcome to 9/11 Freefall. I'm the host, Andy Steele. Well, this week it's my honor to have on J. Michael Springmann. He's the former head of the American Visa Bureau in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. He's spoken extensively about his experiences in that role and its relation to 9/11, which you'll be talking about today. He's also an author, and we'll be learning more about his books at the end of this program. Mr. Springmann, welcome to 9/11 Freefall.
Well, thank you kindly. I appreciate the honor of being able to speak to your listeners and to maybe fill in some of the blanks in their knowledge or to go over the stuff that they may have forgotten.
Absolutely. I actually remember sitting in the audience at conferences, 9/11 Truth conferences, in the early development of this movement and seeing you. And it's so surreal now that we're here talking over the internet and having you here on my show. So let's get started, and please begin, because there's a lot of new people in the movement who weren't following back in 08 and 10 when you were giving these presentations a lot. Begin by telling us about your career leading up to your time in Saudi Arabia.
Sure. In the past, I had worked for the Commerce Department and participated in the State Commerce Exchange Program, and that was essentially the Commerce Department making slots available in Washington for Foreign Service officers who needed a D.C. assignment, but there was no room at State. And in return, State would give Foreign Service positions to Commerce Department employees abroad. And I had been in Stuttgart. I had been in India as part of the new Foreign Commercial Service. And when I joined the Real Estate Department, as a reward, they sent me to Saudi Arabia. And I got to tell you, when I was in Saudi Arabia, it was a really strange and mysterious place, but I don't think it's quite as strange and mysterious as the American Consulate General on Palestine Road. There I found out that they had some real strange problems with visas. Before I left Washington, the American ambassador, Walter Cutler, had been in town for consultations with State Department officials and other government officials for a couple of weeks. And I had been asked by an official at the State Department working with Saudi Arabia if I wanted to meet the ambassador. And I said, oh, of course. And I figured this would be a hello and goodbye session. Thanks, I'm joining your new official family in a few weeks, and so forth. Well, Cutler had me there for 45 minutes talking about all the problems my terrible predecessor had created for him and the embassy in Riyadh. So I thought, well, this woman, Greta Holtz, is going to make my career for me. But I began to hear strange things in Washington about visas, and I had been told by a long-term consular officer that if you hear strange things about visas, you should investigate because they can come back and bite you and damage your career. So I kept asking, well, what is it that you heard and what is it I'm going to be walking into? And never got any answer back. I tried the executive office for the Bureau of Near East South Asia and got nowhere. So I had tried, in fact, to find out information from my predecessor, Greta Holtz, about, well, what did you wish you had known before you got to Jeddah? What surprises did you find that I should know about? And I wrote 3 times, never got an answer back. So I turned up in Jeddah, and it turned out that I was in at the beginning of the American government's program for visas for terrorists, recruiting and training terrorists to go around the world and overthrow governments and assassinate people. But I didn't know it at the time. I was there at the visa window interviewing applicants, And I would refuse a lot of them. They are supposed to demonstrate ties either to their own country or to their place of application that are strong enough to force them to return from a visit to the United States. It's things like having a job that you can't give up, or you have investments that you have to manage, or you have family there and you can't leave your wife and children for the rest of your life, and so forth. Every person was different, but by and large, these are some of the things that you need to demonstrate to show that you have ties that are going to compel you to return from a brief visit to America. And I'd refuse them, and I would get a call from the Consul General, and you need to give this guy a visa. And I said, well, he doesn't meet the Immigration and Nationality Act requirements, and he doesn't meet the State Department's own criteria set out in the Foreign Affairs Manual, which is the State Department's Bible on how to do everything. And at first it was a request, then it was a strong request, then it was a demand, and then it was a threat. If you don't issue the visa, you're going to be unemployed. So this went on for a while. During the 18 months I was there in Jeddah, and I began to hear things that were circulating, like people expected that if I didn't issue the visa, affairs would overrule me, which of course was illegal and against State Department regulations. You have to produce evidence that the individual in question, he's been given more information to the overruling officer than the interviewing officer. And of course, Jay Freres wasn't a consular officer. He was consul general. He was in charge of the whole consulate there. So you needed somebody like the head of the consular section, and that didn't happen very much. So I began keeping notes on this, making photocopies of the application form with my notes on it as to why I'd refused the guy, and also with the notation that I'd been ordered by J. Philip Freres to issue the visa. And I was astonished at this, and I began getting really wretched efficiency reports. In fact, I've been told by a contact outside the consulate, who is a businessman, that if you say one word about the visas or about the problems with alcohol at the consulate to this inspection team that's coming out, you're going to be unemployed. And periodically, the State Department sends a team of inspectors out to embassies and consulates around the world to ensure that they're running smoothly, that they're following the regulations, that they haven't broken any laws, etc. Well, when the guy came out and interviewed me, I kept saying, I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything. And he kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me, saying that if you don't do this, we can't write a decent efficiency report, and this is like the confessional or the attorney-client privilege. What you tell me is absolutely secret. So finally, after about an hour, he wore me down, and I simply confirmed what he had told me about alcohol being sold to people who are not qualified for it, people outside the consulate, and problems with people inside the consulate getting alcohol, and the whole issue of the visas and how strange it was and why I was being overruled. And after that, he simply gave his report to the Consul General, who wrote me a ferociously bad efficiency report. Now, this went on in large part because most of the consulate worked for the Central Intelligence Agency or the National Security Agency or another intelligence service. And there were, in fact, out of some 20 Americans there were only 3 people, including myself, whom I knew for a certainty to be State Department employees. Might have been a couple more, but by and large, it was simply an intelligence operation. And they really, really pushed this. They would give parties and get people liquored up with free alcohol or nearly free alcohol where it was forbidden in Jeddah, and listen to what they were saying. And of course, they also listened to what people were saying about them. In one instance, one woman I had heard had mentioned at one of these pool parties where the alcohol was flowing freely that so-and-so had been a member of the Central Intelligence Agency, and she was promptly fired. But it was a very questionable operation, when I questioned, for example, my predecessor, whom I met on a visit to Jeddah, she'd come up from Yemen, from Sana'a, and I said, well, why didn't you answer my 3 letters? Oh, well, I was so upset that I think that I really couldn't have written you anything back. Well, it turned out once I looked at her biography, once I was out of the State Department, I found out that she'd worked for the intelligence services. She'd worked for the Defense Intelligence